The inspection ship entered Earth's orbit under a dark sky filled with stars. Inside the command room, a group of alien auditors prepared for another routine mission. They had inspected hundreds of military fleets across the galaxy. Most species tried to hide something. Some hid illegal weapons, some hid secret research projects, some simply lied about the size of their fleets. The auditors always found the truth. That was their job. Leading the mission was Senior Auditor Kareth. He was known throughout the Galactic Council for his sharp eyes and cold judgment. Very few people could fool him as he looked at the blue planet below. He expected this mission to be easy. Humans had a reputation for being creative and unpredictable. But compared to the great powers of the galaxy, they were still considered a young species. At least, that was what everyone believed. "Begin the scan," Kareth ordered. An officer pressed several controls. Thousands of sensors spread across Earth's orbit. Data began flowing onto the large screens. Everything looked normal at first. Population numbers, trade routes, defense stations, civilian traffic. Nothing unusual. Then one screen flashed red. The officer frowned. "Sir, you should see this." Kareth walked over. "What is it?" "The fleet records do not match our scans." Kareth's eyes narrowed. That was not uncommon. Many governments made small changes to official records. Usually it was nothing serious. "How large is the difference?" he asked. The officer swallowed nervously. "Official records show 312 combat ships." "And the scan?" The officer looked at the numbers again. 647. The room became silent. Kareth stared at the screen. That was not a small mistake. That was an entire hidden fleet. "Run the scan again," he said. The officer obeyed. A few moments later, the results appeared. The same number, 647. Kareth crossed his arms. "Interesting. Very interesting. Contact Earth Command," he said. Within minutes, a human officer appeared on the main screen. She wore a dark navy uniform. Her expression was calm. "Welcome to Earth orbit," she said. "I am Admiral Sarah Hayes of the United Fleet." Kareth spoke immediately. "Our scans show serious differences between your official records and your actual fleet size." The Admiral did not seem surprised. Instead, she smiled slightly. Audit teams always notice that first. The answer caught Kareth off guard. Most governments became nervous when questioned. This human sounded completely relaxed. "Then perhaps you would like to explain," Kareth said. "Of course," Hayes replied. "Some ships were recently reassigned and have not yet been added to public records." The explanation sounded reasonable, but something about her tone bothered him. She sounded too confident, too prepared, as if she had expected this exact conversation. Kareth studied her face. She showed no signs of fear, no signs of stress, nothing. "We will require full access to all fleet records," he said. "Granted," Hayes replied instantly. Again, no hesitation, no argument, no resistance. The transmission ended. The room remained quiet. One of Kareth's officers leaned closer. "Sir, something feels wrong." Kareth nodded slowly. He agreed. Every instinct he had developed during decades of investigations was warning him. Humans were hiding something. The question was what? Hours later, the audit team began reviewing the records Earth had provided. Most of the files appeared normal. Ship construction reports, maintenance logs, training schedules, supply chains, everything seemed organized. Almost too organized. Then another officer suddenly froze. "Sir, look at this." Kareth moved quickly to the station. The officer pointed at a fleet deployment report. Several ships appeared on one page, then disappeared completely on the next. There was no explanation, no transfer orders, no destruction reports, nothing. It was as if the ships had vanished. "How many?" Kareth asked. The officer checked. 23 vessels. "Can you track them?" "No, sir." Kareth felt a chill. Ships did not simply disappear, not military ships, not without records. He ordered a deeper search. The computers worked for hours. Finally, they found something. A single encrypted file hidden deep inside the database. The file carried the highest security clearance. Even the title was strange. Project Deep Harbor. Kareth opened the access request. A message appeared immediately. "Access denied. Galactic authorization insufficient. The room erupted in confusion. That cannot be correct. We have the highest audit clearance. There should be no restricted files above our authority. Kareth stared at the screen. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely unsettled. Someone had created a security level above the Galactic Council. That should have been impossible. Then every monitor inside the ship suddenly went black. Alarms echoed through the command deck. The crew jumped to their feet. A new message appeared across every screen. 6 simple words: "You are looking too closely now." The room fell silent. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Kareth read the message again. His heart beat faster, because for the first time since arriving at Earth, he was no longer certain that humanity was the subject of the audit. It felt as if humanity had been watching them all along. And somewhere beyond the darkness of space, something was waiting for the auditors to discover it. The message remained on the screens long after the alarms stopped. "You are looking too closely now." No one in the command room spoke. The words seemed simple, yet they carried a warning that every auditor could feel. Senior Auditor Kareth stared at the message for several seconds. Then the screen suddenly returned to normal. The message vanished as if it had never existed. "Trace the source," Kareth ordered. His officers immediately went to work. Minutes passed. Then one officer shook his head. "We can't find it, sir." "What do you mean you can't find it?" The signal left no path, no location, nothing. That answer made no sense. Every transmission had a source. Every signal came from somewhere, but this one seemed to appear from nowhere. Kareth looked toward Earth through the observation window. The blue world looked peaceful, calm, ordinary. Yet he was beginning to suspect that humanity was far from ordinary. "Continue searching the records," he said. "If someone wants to scare us away, we are getting close to something important." The crew returned to work. Hours later, another strange discovery appeared. One of the analysts rushed toward Kareth. His face looked pale. "Sir, I found something connected to Project Deep Harbor." Kareth immediately stood up. "Show me." The analyst pulled up an old military report. The file was damaged. Large sections were missing, but one page remained readable. Kareth carefully examined the text. The report was nearly 40 years old. It described a fleet exercise near the edge of human-controlled space. According to the report, 23 ships entered a classified sector. Those were the same 23 ships that had vanished from the records. But what caught Kareth's attention was the final sentence. "No vessels returned through known space." Kareth frowned. "What does that mean?" The analyst looked confused. "I don't know, sir." "Ships either return or they don't." "Exactly." The wording was strange, very strange, almost as if the ships had returned somewhere else. Before Kareth could think further, another alert appeared. A direct communication request from Earth Command. Admiral Sarah Hayes appeared on the main screen once again. Her calm expression had not changed. "Senior Auditor Kareth." "Admiral," Kareth replied. "We need to discuss several irregularities in your records." "I expected that." Her answer was immediate, almost rehearsed. Kareth leaned forward. "Tell me about Project Deep Harbor." For the first time, the Admiral became silent. Only for a moment, but Kareth noticed it. The pause lasted less than a second. Yet it was there. When she spoke again, her voice remained calm. "I'm afraid I cannot discuss that project. You cannot or you will not." The Admiral smiled slightly. "Both." The room became quiet. No government official had ever spoken to an audit team like that. Most species feared the authority of the Galactic Council. Humans seemed completely unconcerned. "You are required to cooperate," Kareth said. "Within legal limits," Hayes replied. "Project Deep Harbor falls outside those limits." Kareth's eyes narrowed. "Who created those limits?" The Admiral's smile disappeared. Then she gave an answer that surprised everyone. "Not humanity." Several officers exchanged nervous looks. Kareth felt a cold sensation move down his spine. "What does that mean?" he asked, but Hayes ignored the question. Instead, she looked directly into the camera. "Senior Auditor." "Yes?" "There is something you should understand." "What is that?" The Admiral took a slow breath. "Some secrets exist to protect people, and some exist to protect reality itself. Silence filled the room. Nobody knew how to respond. The statement sounded impossible, even ridiculous, yet Hayes spoke with complete seriousness. Reality? Kareth asked. You expect me to believe that? You don't have to believe it, the Admiral replied. You only have to decide whether you wish to keep investigating. Then the transmission ended. The screen went dark. No farewell, no explanation, nothing for several seconds. Nobody spoke. Finally, one officer laughed nervously. Protect reality? That's insane. Maybe it was, but Kareth was no longer certain. Everything about this audit was becoming stranger by the hour. The hidden ships, the impossible security clearance, the mysterious message, and now this, a warning about reality itself. Hours later, another breakthrough arrived. The analysts finally managed to access a fragment of a sealed deep harbor archive. Most of the file was corrupted, but one image survived. The picture appeared on the main screen. The entire command room froze. It showed one of the missing human ships, but the vessel was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its design did not match any known human technology, or any technology in the galaxy. The ship appeared enormous, far larger than a standard battleship, and surrounding it were dozens of stars, not nearby stars, stars trapped inside massive energy fields. As if someone had somehow captured entire suns. What am I looking at? One officer whispered. Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Then another line of text appeared beneath the image, a single sentence. Prototype Gate Fleet, Trial 1 successful. Kareth felt his heart pounding. A Gate Fleet? Successful trial? The words raised more questions than answers. Then a final line appeared at the bottom of the screen, a line that made every person in the room stare in disbelief. Destination reached. Unknown universe. The command room fell completely silent, because at that moment, the auditors realized they might not be investigating a hidden fleet anymore. They might be investigating humanity's connection to something far larger than their entire galaxy. Nobody spoke for several minutes after reading the final line. Destination reached. Unknown universe. The words remained on the screen like a challenge, or perhaps a warning. Senior Auditor Kareth stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the ancient file. During his entire career, he had uncovered hidden weapons, secret fleets, and illegal military projects. But this was different, much different. If the file was real, then humanity had achieved something no species in known history had ever done. They had traveled beyond the boundaries of the known universe. One of the officers finally broke the silence. Sir, could the file be fake? Everyone looked toward Kareth. It was the question they all wanted answered. Kareth crossed his arms. Perhaps, but if humanity wanted to fool us, why leave clues behind? Nobody had an answer. That was the problem. Nothing about this audit made sense anymore. The hidden ships, the impossible security clearances, the strange warnings, and now a fleet that supposedly vanished into another universe. Kareth turned toward the analysts. I want every piece of information connected to Deep Harbor. Search everything, even deleted archives. The officers immediately returned to work. Hours passed, then another discovery appeared. A junior analyst suddenly jumped from his chair. Sir! Kareth hurried across the room. What is it? The analyst pointed at a star map. At first it looked normal. Then Kareth noticed something strange. There were several locations marked with red symbols. The symbols did not appear on any official Galactic Council maps. Where did this come from? Kareth asked. A hidden navigation archive. What are the markers? The analyst swallowed. We don't know. Kareth studied the map carefully. The red symbols were spread across distant regions of space. Some were located near known human colonies. Others existed in completely unexplored sectors. Then he noticed something even stranger. Each marker was connected by a thin line. Together they formed a giant pattern. Almost like a network or a pathway, one officer zoomed in. A small note appeared beside the first marker. The room immediately fell silent. Gateway 1. Stable. Kareth felt a chill. Gateway? The word matched the phrase from the old file. Prototype Gate Fleet. Could these locations be connected somehow? Before anyone could investigate further, An emergency signal echoed through the ship. The command room lights flashed red. Incoming vessel detected. Everyone rushed to their stations. Kareth looked toward the main display. A single ship had appeared near the audit vessel. The arrival shocked everyone. No warp signature, no jump signature, no warning. One moment the ship was absent. The next moment it simply existed, as if space itself had opened and released it. What kind of ship is that? Someone whispered. Nobody knew. The vessel was human in design, but far larger than anything listed in official records. Its dark hull stretched across the display like a moving mountain. There were no visible weapons, no visible engines, nothing. The ship looked strangely silent, almost peaceful, yet every person in the room felt nervous looking at it. Then a transmission request arrived. The screen activated. Admiral Sarah Hayes appeared once again. But this time she was not smiling. Senior Auditor Kareth. Her voice was calm, yet serious. "You need to stop your investigation immediately." Kareth stared at her. "Why?" "Because you are approaching information that was never meant for the Galactic Council. We have authority to investigate military projects." Hayes nodded. "Normally, yes." "Then explain what that ship is." The Admiral remained silent for a moment. Then she answered. "An observer." Kareth frowned. "An observer of what?" Hayes looked directly into the camera. "Of you." The room became quiet. Kareth felt his pulse quicken. "Humanity is monitoring us?" "Not humanity," Hayes replied. "Then who?" For the first time, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. "That answer is classified." Kareth slammed his hand onto the console. "Everything is classified." "Because everything beyond this point is dangerous," Hayes replied. The transmission ended instantly. No explanation, no warning, nothing. The giant ship remained outside, watching. Hours later, the audit team continued searching despite the warnings. Curiosity had become stronger than fear. Then they found another hidden archive. Unlike previous files, this one contained video footage. Kareth ordered it opened immediately. The recording began. A human officer appeared on the screen. The timestamp showed a date nearly 30 years old. The officer looked terrified. Behind him, alarms echoed endlessly. "We have reached the destination," the man said, his voice shaking. The gate functioned correctly. Several people moved behind him. Some appeared excited. Others looked frightened. Then the camera turned toward a large observation window. The command room froze. Beyond the glass was a sky unlike anything they had ever seen. There were stars, but they were wrong. The colors were different. The patterns were different. Even the laws of physics seemed strange. Entire star systems floated inside glowing structures larger than galaxies. Massive shapes moved through space in the distance. Shapes so enormous that the human ships looked like grains of dust beside them. One officer whispered, "That's impossible." Then the video suddenly shook. The humans inside the recording began shouting. Warning lights flashed everywhere. A frightened voice yelled, "It's looking at us." The camera zoomed toward the distant darkness. At first nothing appeared there. Then everyone in the audit room saw it, a gigantic eye, far beyond human understanding, opening slowly between the stars. The recording ended instantly. The room fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even breathing seemed difficult. Finally, Kareth looked at the final line attached to the video file, and what he read made his blood run cold. First contact event recorded. Recommendation: keep all gate networks closed. Status: recommendation ignored. Kareth stared at the words. Because if humanity had ignored the warning, then somewhere beyond the known universe, the gates were still open, and whatever had looked back at them 30 years ago might already know the way here. The command room remained silent long after the recording ended. No one could stop thinking about the giant eye. It had not looked like a machine. It had not looked like a living creature. It had looked like something beyond both. Something that should not exist. Senior Auditor Kareth slowly sat down. For the first time in his career, he felt genuine fear. Not fear of war, not fear of politics, but fear of the unknown around him. The officers exchanged nervous glances. Nobody knew what to say. Finally, one analyst spoke. Sir. If that recording is real, then humanity discovered another universe 30 years ago, Kareth nodded. And they kept it secret. The analyst swallowed. Why would they hide something that important? Before Kareth could answer, another officer spoke. Maybe because of what they found there, the room became quiet again. That possibility frightened everyone. A species would not hide such a discovery unless there was a very good reason, or a very terrible one. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the ship. Every screen flashed yellow. An incoming transmission had appeared, but this time it was not coming from Earth. The source was unknown. The signal carried no identification code, no location data, nothing. It should not have been possible. Put it on the main screen, Kareth ordered. The transmission connected. At first there was only static. Strange sounds filled the room. Whispers, clicks, and distant echoes. The sounds seemed random, yet somehow they felt organized. As if someone was trying to communicate using a language no one understood. Then a voice emerged, cold, slow, and strangely human. Gate network active. The entire command room froze. The voice continued. Observation continues. Several officers stared at each other. None of them had ever heard the voice before. Yet every person felt the same thing. The speaker was not human. The transmission ended. The screens returned to normal. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, one officer whispered, "Did that just happen?" Nobody answered because everyone had heard it. Hours later, Earth Command requested another meeting. Admiral Sarah Hayes appeared on the screen. This time she looked far more serious than before. "You received the signal." It was not a question. Kareth nodded. "You knew it was coming." "Yes." The answer came immediately. Anger appeared on Kareth's face. "You knew and you said nothing?" Hayes looked directly at him. "If we had explained everything when you arrived, you would not have believed us. Try me." For several seconds, the Admiral remained silent. Then she finally spoke. 30 years ago, humanity opened the first stable gateway. The room became completely still. At first we thought it would change history. We thought we had discovered unlimited worlds, unlimited resources, unlimited opportunities. Her voice grew darker. We were wrong. Kareth listened carefully. Every officer in the room did the same. The first exploration fleet entered another universe. They reported strange stars and unusual physics. Then they found evidence of intelligence. Kareth remembered the giant eye. His stomach tightened. Hayes continued. The explorers believed they were observing something from a safe distance, but they were mistaken. It was observing them. Nobody interrupted her. Nobody dared. The moment contact happened, everything changed. Signals began appearing inside human systems. Ships reported being watched. Research stations detected impossible energy readings. And then the voices started. Several officers exchanged nervous looks. The mysterious transmission suddenly seemed much more important. "What voices?" Kareth asked. Hayes hesitated, then answered, "The same voice you heard today." Silence filled the room. Kareth felt cold, very cold. "Who sent it?" he asked. The Admiral slowly shook her head. "We still don't know." That answer frightened him more than anything else. Humanity had been studying this mystery for 30 years, and they still had no answers. Suddenly another alarm sounded. Even Hayes looked surprised. An officer rushed into view behind her. His face was pale. "Admiral, we have another event." Hayes immediately stood. "What happened?" The officer swallowed. "Gateway 7 activated by itself." The Admiral's expression changed instantly. For the first time, Kareth saw real fear in her eyes. "That's impossible." "Apparently not, ma'am," the officer replied. The transmission cut off abruptly. The audit team stared at the blank screen. Nobody understood what had just happened. Then every monitor aboard the ship suddenly activated. Not one, not some, all of them. A single image appeared everywhere. The image showed deep space, empty darkness. At first nothing seemed unusual. Then the darkness moved. Several officers gasped. Kareth leaned forward. The darkness was not empty. Something enormous was hidden inside it. Something so large that entire star systems seemed tiny beside it. The shape slowly shifted, as if it were waking up. Then new text appeared beneath the image. Gateway 7 open. A second line appeared. Connection established. The room fell silent. Nobody breathed. Nobody blinked. Then a final line appeared. 6 words that made every heart stop. Ida remembers the way back. And somewhere far beyond the borders of known reality, something had begun moving toward humanity's universe. The words remained on every screen. IT remembers the way back. No one in the audit ship moved. No one even spoke. The message felt less like information and more like a warning. Senior Auditor Kareth stared at the screen. His mind raced through every possibility, but none of them made sense. How could something from another universe remember a path it had seen only once? And more importantly, why was it trying to return? The silence ended when a new transmission arrived from Earth. This time the connection opened automatically. Admiral Sarah Hayes appeared again, but she was no longer inside a command center. She stood in a massive underground facility. Red emergency lights flashed around her. People rushed through the background. Something serious was happening, very serious. "Senior Auditor," Hayes said. Her voice was calm, but only barely. "We no longer have time to hide the truth." Kareth folded his arms. "I was beginning to suspect that." Hayes nodded. Then she took a deep breath. "What I am about to tell you has never been shared outside humanity's highest security level." The officers inside the audit ship listened carefully. Every word suddenly felt important. 30 years ago, when humanity opened the first gateway, they discovered something unexpected. At first they believed they had reached another universe. Later they learned the truth. It was not another universe. At least not exactly. Kareth frowned. "What does that mean?" Hayes looked directly into the camera. "It was older than our universe." The room became silent. The statement sounded impossible. Yet after everything they had already seen, nobody laughed. Hayes continued, "Our scientists believe it existed before the birth of our reality, before our stars, before our galaxies, before time itself took its current form." Several officers exchanged nervous looks. The Admiral continued speaking. "The place was not empty. It contained structures older than anything we could measure. Cities larger than solar systems, machines the size of galaxies, and records left behind by a civilization that no longer existed." Kareth listened closely. Every answer seemed to create even more questions. What happened to them? He asked. Hayes became quiet. Then she answered, "We never found survivors. We only found warnings." That sentence sent a chill through the room. Warnings. From a civilization advanced enough to build galaxy-sized machines. What kind of warnings? Kareth asked. The Admiral's face grew serious. They all said the same thing. "Do not open the gates twice." Nobody spoke. The room suddenly felt colder. Kareth remembered Gateway 7, the one that had activated by itself. Hayes continued, "At first humanity ignored the warnings. We thought they were myths. Old stories created by a dying civilization. Then the disappearances started." An officer beside Kareth leaned forward. "Disappearances?" Hayes nodded. "Ships vanished. Research stations vanished. Entire colonies vanished. Without explosions, without distress calls, without any evidence." The room reigned silent. Humanity had hidden far more than secret fleets. They had hidden a war. A war against something nobody understood. Suddenly, one of the human technicians ran toward Hayes. His face looked pale. "Admiral, new readings from Gateway 7. Hayes turned immediately. "What do we have?" The technician hesitated, then answered, "Movement." The word echoed through the room. Hayes looked back toward the camera. "You're about to learn why everything became classified." The transmission switched. A live feed appeared on every screen. The image showed Gateway 7. For the first time, the auditors saw one of the gateways. It floated in deep space. A gigantic ring larger than a moon, covered with glowing symbols. Energy surged across its surface. The structure looked ancient, far older than humanity itself. Kareth stared at it in disbelief. Then something happened. The center of the ring began to glow. The light grew brighter and brighter and brighter, until it looked like a second sun. Several officers shielded their eyes. Then a shape appeared inside the light. At first it seemed small. Then everyone realized the terrible truth. It was still incredibly far away. The object only looked small because of the distance. As it moved closer, its true size became clear. Gasps filled the room. The thing emerging from the gateway was larger than a planet. Much larger, its surface shifted constantly. Cities appeared and vanished across it. Mountains moved, oceans formed and disappeared. As if reality itself struggled to understand what it was seeing. One officer whispered, "That's not a ship." He was right. It was not a ship, it was not a station, it was not a creature. It seemed to be all three at the same time. Then the sensors began reporting data. Every monitor flashed warnings. Mass unknown, energy output unknown, structure classification unknown. The systems could not identify it, because nothing like it existed in any database. Suddenly another message appeared across every screen. The same cold voice returned. This time it sounded clearer, closer, and far more aware. "Gate confirmed," the voice said. "Path confirmed." The giant object continued moving through the gateway, slowly, patiently, like something returning home after a very long journey. Then the voice spoke again, and the words froze every person listening. "Humanity remembered us." The transmission ended. Silence filled the room. Kareth stared at the impossible object crossing into their universe, because he finally understood something terrifying. Humanity had not been hiding their fleet from the galaxy. Humanity had been preparing for the return of something far older than the galaxy itself. And now, after 30 years, that preparation was finally about to be tested. The enormous object continued emerging from Gateway 7. Every second, more of it entered the universe. Every second, the sensor readings became more impossible. Senior Auditor Kareth watched in silence. His crew watched with him. Nobody knew what to say. Nothing in their training had prepared them for this. The thing moving through the gateway was larger than entire worlds. Yet it moved with perfect control, as if crossing between realities was as simple as walking through a door. The cold voice still echoed in everyone's minds. "Humanity remembered us." Those words changed everything, because they revealed a truth no one had considered. This was not humanity's first encounter with the entity. It knew them, and apparently humanity knew it as well. A transmission from Earth Command appeared once again. Admiral Sarah Hayes looked exhausted. The calm confidence she had shown during the audit was gone. Now she looked like someone carrying the weight of a terrible secret. "Kareth," she said, "for the first time, I'm asking for your help." The statement surprised him. Until now, humanity had treated the audit team as outsiders. Now they were asking for assistance. What exactly is happening? Kareth asked. Hayes took a slow breath. The thing coming through Gateway 7 is not the real threat. The room fell silent. Several officers stared at her in disbelief. Kareth frowned. "If that's not the threat, then what is?" The Admiral looked directly into the camera. "It's a scout." No one spoke. The word felt impossible. A scout? How could something larger than a planet be a scout? Hayes continued. 30 years ago, our explorers discovered evidence of a civilization older than reality itself. But they also discovered evidence of something that destroyed that civilization. The room became quiet. Everyone listened carefully. The records left behind described a force called the Harvest. Kareth had never heard the name before. Neither had anyone else. "What is the Harvest?" he asked. Hayes hesitated, then answered, "We don't fully know. We only know what the ancient records described. They called it a moving intelligence, a force that travels between realities, a force that consumes advanced civilizations." The words sent a chill through the room. Hayes continued. "Whenever a civilization becomes powerful enough to cross universes, the Harvest finds them and eventually destroys them." Kareth slowly understood. The ancient warnings, the vanished civilizations, the closed gateways, everything suddenly connected. Humanity had not been hiding technology. Humanity had been hiding a threat. Then another officer stepped beside Hayes. The man wore a black military uniform unlike anything the auditors had seen before. His expression was cold and focused. Hayes turned toward him. Tell them, the officer nodded. My name is Commander Ethan Ward. I command the Sentinel Fleet. Kareth frowned. Sentinel Fleet? Ward gave a small smile. The fleet you weren't supposed to find. Several officers exchanged looks. At last, the hidden fleet. The mystery that started the entire audit, Ward continued. For 30 years humanity has quietly expanded its military, not for conquest, not for defense against the galaxy, but for one purpose. He paused, then finished. Stopping the harvest. The command room became silent. Kareth suddenly remembered the missing ships, the impossible projects, the classified records. Everything had been connected from the beginning. How large is this fleet? He asked. Ward looked at him calmly. Officially? 300 combat ships. A few nervous laughs appeared. Then Ward's expression became serious. In reality? The screen changed. A star map appeared. At first, Kareth thought the display was broken. Thousands of symbols filled the map. Thousands. His eyes widened. The symbols represented warships, not hundreds, not thousands, but tens of thousands. Entire hidden armadas waited throughout human-controlled space. Fortress stations surrounded distant systems. Massive defense platforms guarded the gateways. The auditors stared in shock. Humanity possessed one of the largest military forces ever assembled. And nobody in the galaxy knew. Ward spoke again. Everything you discovered during the audit was only the outer layer. The real project started after first contact with the harvest. Kareth looked at the endless fleet markers. 30 years of preparation, Ward nodded. 30 years of knowing one day it would return. Suddenly alarms erupted across every screen. The room froze. A new sensor report appeared. Gateway 7 was no longer the only active gateway. Another gateway had activated. Then another, and another, and another. The map lit up with warning signals. One officer stared at the display in horror. There are 12 activations. Another officer corrected him. No, his voice trembled. There are 20. The room fell silent. 20 gateways. 20 openings into the unknown. Commander Ward's expression darkened. This is earlier than expected. Kareth looked at him. How much earlier? Ward answered immediately. 10 years. That answer hit like a weapon. Humanity had expected more time, more preparation, more ships, but the enemy had arrived ahead of schedule. Then every screen across the fleet changed simultaneously. A single message appeared, not from Earth. Not from the gateways, but from something else, something beyond them all. The same cold voice returned, only now it sounded almost amused, almost pleased. The path is open. A second line appeared. The harvest has seen your light. Several officers stopped breathing. Then a final line appeared. One sentence that made even Commander Ward go silent. The first wave arrives in 72 hours. The room froze. Because everyone understood what those words meant. The giant object emerging from Gateway 7 was only the beginning. And somewhere beyond the darkness between realities, an entire force was already moving toward the galaxy. The command room stood silent after the message appeared. The first wave arrives in 72 hours. No one moved. No one spoke. For the auditors, the message felt like a death sentence. For 30 years humanity had prepared for this moment, and even they had expected 10 more years. Yet Commander Ethan Ward looked strangely calm. Senior Auditor Kareth noticed it immediately. The human officers around him were concerned, focused, alert, but not terrified. That made no sense. An enemy capable of destroying civilizations across realities was approaching. Why wasn't humanity panicking? Kareth looked at Ward. You expected this threat for 30 years. Yes, and now it's finally here. Yes, then why do you seem so calm? For the first time, Ward smiled. It was not a confident smile. It was not an arrogant smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time. Because, Ward said, we finished preparing years ago. The room became silent. Kareth frowned. But you said the arrival was early, Ward nodded. It is. Then what's changed? The commander folded his arms. What changed is that the harvest believes humanity spent 30 years hiding. The star map disappeared. A new image replaced it. An image marked with the highest security level Kareth had ever seen. Project Last Horizon, Ward continued. While the galaxy saw trade routes, colonies, and diplomacy, humanity was building something else. The screen zoomed outward. The auditors stared in disbelief. Hidden beyond ordinary space was a structure so large it barely fit on the display. At first they thought it was a moon, then a planet, then something even larger. The structure stretched across an entire star system. Thousands of shipyards surrounded it. Millions of vessels moved around its surface. Kareth slowly stood. "What is that?" Ward answered calmly. "The reason we weren't worried when the gateways opened." The image zoomed closer. Massive weapons covered the structure. Defense systems larger than cities. Energy arrays bigger than continents. It looked less like a military base and more like a machine built to fight gods. One officer whispered, "How did nobody find this?" Ward smiled. "We made sure nobody would." The room remained silent. Then another transmission arrived. This one did not come from Earth. It came from Gateway 7. The giant object had fully entered the universe. For the first time, it spoke directly. Its voice echoed through every system, every station, every ship, every communication network in known space. Species across the galaxy heard it at the same moment. The voice was ancient, cold, and completely certain. Reality 7 confirmed. Harvest arrival confirmed. Local civilizations evaluated. Kareth felt a chill. The entity was examining the galaxy as if it were a collection of insects. Then the voice continued. Resistance probability insignificant. Several officers clenched their fists. The thing had already decided the outcome. It believed victory was certain. Then humanity responded. A new signal spread across every communication network. Commander Ward appeared on billions of screens, not just in the audit ship, not just on Earth everywhere. He looked directly into the camera, then spoke 4 simple words. Begin Horizon Protocol. The galaxy changed instantly. Thousands of hidden locations activated. Stars seemed to come alive. Massive structures emerged from places thought to be empty. Entire fleets appeared from concealed regions of space. The auditors watched in shock. Humanity had not built one hidden fleet. They had built hundreds. The star map became crowded with friendly signals. Then crowded again, and again, until the display could barely show them all. The Harvest Scout paused. For the first time, its response was delayed, as if it were confused. Then a new message came from the entity. Unexpected military presence detected. A nervous laugh escaped one of the auditors. That might have been the greatest understatement in galactic history. The scout continued scanning. Its analysis systems worked rapidly. Then another message appeared. This time the voice sounded different. Not confident, not certain, concerned. Probability assessment updating. Kareth looked toward Ward. The commander remained calm, almost amused. Then the final secret appeared on the screen. A classified report created 29 years earlier. The title froze everyone in place. Harvest Counteroffensive Plan. Beneath it was a single line. Status, ready since year 1. Kareth stared at the words. Humanity had not spent 30 years trying to survive. Humanity had spent 30 years preparing to fight. The realization hit him like a shockwave. Every hidden fleet, every classified project, every secret shipyard, every impossible weapon. They had all been built for this moment. The Harvest thought it was arriving to destroy another civilization. Instead, it had arrived exactly where humanity wanted it. The giant scout transmitted one final report toward the gateways. A report meant for the approaching Harvest fleets, but humanity intercepted it. And every person in the galaxy heard the message. Warning, the scout said. Its ancient voice carrying something nobody expected. Fear. Warning. Target civilization differs from historical pattern. The transmission paused. Then came the words that would spread across the galaxy for generations. Recommendation. Do not proceed. Silence filled the stars. Commander Ward smiled. The Harvest had crossed realities expecting prey. Instead, it had discovered humanity. And for the first time in countless ages, the thing that hunted civilizations had become the thing being hunted. The end.